So, good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph. I'm the training manager of PBSI, and we welcome you all on our session called Let's Learn Together. And we are deeply honored today to have our consultant, our guest speaker for today, Mr. Jay Jaboneta. Um, Sir Jay is the managing director of Nexus Innovations Lab of Del Salipa, and also the co-founder of the Yellow Boat of Hope Foundation and chief panda of I Am VR Panda, and several other technology startups. No, he sits on the boards of various organizations in the country and consults in disruptive technologies, resource mobilization, and social innovation. So, without any further ado, I'll give the screen to Sir Jay Jaboneta to start the session. Welcome and welcome you to the session Upgrade Your Life OS. Sir Jay?
Thank you, Joseph. Good morning, everyone. Kamusta po kayo ngayon Monday morning? I hope everyone had a good weekend rest. My topic, the learning session this morning that I designed is actually very light. But I personally believe that it will be helpful, especially during this time na halos lahat tayo naka-work from home setup. There's no update yet on whether the ECQ will be extended or will be lifted. So I hope everybody is on game mode. Let me just share my presentation. I've given this presentation for some time now, and can you see the presentation now? And for me, I really find it valuable. I use it a lot in my personal life, and for me, it's a very important mindset. You know, when we use a framework like this to live our lives or to plan and design our life, there is such a thing as designing your life. Parang you're creating your own personal curriculum because as we all know, we must continue learning. So actually, when I was reviewing the slides this weekend, I realized na very much applicable siya during this period, no? When we have to work from home, when we have to motivate ourselves and be productive. So again, this training is brought to you by PowerMac Center Business Systems Inc. Yung team nila Joseph, and I believe their head is here, si Miss Maleng Raisag. Um, and of course, maybe 2 years or a year ago, we also started this campaign called Everyone Can Code. As I believe Joseph will present later, Power Mac Center have training programs that are technical in nature in terms of learning how to code, among many others. So for me, the short topic for this morning is really about building the muscle for your brain or for your mind. And ito, I've realized this over maybe the last 3 to 4 years na, di ba we always update our phones, our tablets, our even our computers. And ngayon, ang dami ng ibang smart home devices that we use at home. And regularly from time to time, especially yung sa mobile phone, we update, di ba, the applications, the programs from time to time. But do we actually take a step back and actually also update, di ba, the mental models, the mental framework that we are using to live our life? So for this coming, the next 6 months, I personally believe, my personal assessment of the situation is that we would be in some quarantine situation for some time, whether it gets relaxed. I think people will be very cautious when going outside. And until the vaccine is found for COVID-19, it will be very hard to have a lot of very close proximity interactions. And for me, this is a good time to use a framework that we can design so that we can use so that we can excel even during the this time of a pandemic. And so why upgrade? Why upgrade your thinking models? Why upgrade your mental models? And for me, it's very important that we realize that a lot of the experts now say we live in a VUCA world, and VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And for me, it really is captured by this statement that there's rapid change, and organizations have to become agile so that they can respond to it, but also individuals. I think for most of you who are parents, maybe a lot of you are struggling in terms of how do you balance your work from home requirements or your work, uh, and also your family obligations, diba? Now you have kids probably running in your house. So for me, it's a very important step, to take a step back and see how you can design your life better. And for me, I really made this very simple. I summarized it a bit for this, I shortened it a bit for this morning session. But basically, these are 10 tips that I hope will help you upgrade your life's operating system. So, for me, I always start with this code. I am in the education sector for the last 10 years, and I also believe 10 years ago I encountered the book by Randy Bosch called The Last Lecture. But actually, his book was a popular YouTube video before it got translated into a book. But basically, he was a teacher at Carnegie Mellon University, and he was actually instrumental also for designing the first virtual worlds in virtual reality. But he was a dreamer, and he was a teacher on technology. But a few years back, he gave this last lecture when he was diagnosed with cancer, and where he basically explained, that he achieved most of his childhood dreams, and he was giving some tips, how some life hacks, how you can achieve your dreams. He became a NASA. He worked in NASA. He worked in Disney as an Imagineer. But for me, I think for your life, you have to figure out what your dream is. You have to give yourself, even if you have all these burdens, if you have all these pressures from family, from work, from all other aspects of your life, it's important to take a step back. And for me, upgrading your life OS is really about this. It's about taking back our precious time. I believe it now for me, this COVID-19 situation, it really made me realize that that the things we spend on and use our time with are very important. It's giving us, for me, the situation is giving us that opportunity, and so it's a good opportunity for us to take a step back and design, a better life. So as you can see, very briefly, I wanted to show this slide. I think especially for a lot of us who are, working for employers or employees, we have to realize that there is a transition that's happening in the workforce. And if you can see, especially under this work from home arrangement, it used to be that you can clock out of 5 p.m. And work is done. Now I've been in meetings all the way up to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Because I guess in people's quest to say that they were productive, the meetings tend to be very long. But for me, that's why we need to explore these new concepts on working from home, remote learning, online education, online learning, because there is a coming shift. And especially in the US, in the Silicon Valley area, a lot of the technology companies, including Apple, Google, and a few others, are have already told their employees and their workers that the work from home setup will be extended for the rest of the year. But the policies, especially the human resources policies, have have not caught up yet with these changes. So for me, it's very important na we influence that discussion in terms of what is the balance that needs to be that needs to happen so that we live healthy and productive lives. So for me, very important na I think for this slide, I wanted to emphasize na for us to realize that we will live also in a new world. This is we're sort of in the transition period, and we have to adjust our mental models, our mindsets that we are using. So the session this morning is really about developing valuable skills that we need to thrive in the 21st century. So over the last 10 years, for some of you who are not familiar with the Yellow Boat story, 10 years ago, I went to Zamboanga City and I found out that there are kids who have to swim to school. And so, we went back to, I used technology, specifically Facebook. I posted something, it went viral, and people came together. And then we helped the community. We actually built them, we gave them a boat. So basically, Yellow Boat in a nutshell is it's like a transportation company. So help kids get from their you know get from their home and then bring them to school. And so over the last 10 years, our story really is a story of hope. And I came up with this operational framework for hope. And for me, in any situation, you have to start with your strengths, with your skill set, with what you're passionate about. So for me, H is about harnessing your potential. And for me, it's really about starting with finding a problem. I believe all of us get born or were born for a particular reason. And actually, kahit na, without becoming melodramatic about it, that we all have a purpose, if you look and analyze at your life, you actually realize that, based on, a very simple assessment, look back at the projects that you loved working on, situations that you loved to be in, you'd realize it's because you were able to use your skills and passion, to create value for your community or for your colleagues. So for me, it's very important na to start with the problem. Like for Yellow Boat, in my case, I'm not just with Yellow Boat, I'm also with Dela Salipa now. For me, it's very important that we sort of how would I put it? Parang it's very important for you to realize na what is the problem that you want to solve out there in the world. Because like kung makita mo yung sa Yellow Boat, the problem is really kids getting an education. So with the Yellow Boat, we get them to school, but it doesn't mean that they're able to be fully good at learning, and also they get a quality education. So meaning, even if there we are able to bring about a solution, hindi ibig sabihin nagtatapos doon. So I even joined, the Lasallian schools, to hope to operationalize innovation at the university level. So for me, very important yun, because the broader problem that you love solving, you'll be there for some time, and you'd really be able to find solutions. So ako, very important yung for you to figure out what excites you, what wakes you up at night, what wakes you up in the morning, and what keeps you awake at night. And so for me, everything yun yung magiging story mo eh. And it is a template for 21st century learning, because yun yung gagamitin mo to seek out trainings or learning or books or video tutorials, so that you can continue building solutions for that problem. The second element, O, is about opening your wallet. And for me, it's really about an asset inventory. When I first posted about the problem of kids swimming to school, I'm not, even at this point, I don't have a lot of, physical resources. But I realized I had a lot of friends who were willing to help these kids. And I was able to raise funds together with my co-founder, Doc Anton. And so for me, once you have a problem, it is very rare for one individual. Even in the case of Apple, we're very familiar with the story. Steve Jobs, there was a Steve Wozniak that actually built the first Apple computer. So it's very rare for one individual to create, the needed innovation. So it's very important for you to have an asset inventory. Ano ba yung strength ko? Is it my own skills, or is it bringing people with a lot of skills needed to produce the solution or innovation? And of course, once you figured the first two, the next step is to prototype. It's to perspire. It's to take action. Thomas Edison is very popular for the quote, "Everything in life is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." So very important sa amin sa Yellow Boat, it took us actually 5 months to build the very first boat. But when we were duplicating it in other communities, it takes us 2 weeks na lang to build the first boat in that area. Dahil alam na namin, we had learned, the profile of the right boat builder. We know what the elements that need to be present are so that it will take off the ground. And lastly, that's why I love sharing our story, because E is really about empowering others. And the success, any success is really built upon the learnings or the failures and mistakes that happened in the past, because we learned from there. So for me, I'll go into the 10 tips after this, but for me, yung hope, the world needs, that's why I use hope a lot, because I believe the world needs a lot of us to build hope builders, because we are facing unprecedented changes in terms of, the difficult situations that we are facing globally. So, ako, very important, no, for us to take a mindset of continuous learning, because we don't learn everything in school. So now a lot of other schools are looking at implementing this. But like how to sell, how to communicate. Sometimes the school system is not really built for this skills that are needed, to thrive in the 21st century. So for me, very important for us to have a mindset that we can change the mental models that we are using. And just to inspire you, and I hope na you'd be inspired to take action after this training session, and pursue your dreams, even how little they are. There's Elon Musk. Their family came from Africa, though they were Canadian by origin. He has now founded so many companies. And for me, even with the Yellow Boat, we realized that if even if you're ordinary people, if you band together, you can create something extraordinary. And we all know about Steve Jobs, and he's famous for telling people that you can make a dent in the universe. Though yun nga, you can only connect it backwards after it has happened. But ako, for me, it starts from that belief na you can change things. And of course, educator Alvin Toffler, I think it's very important. Kung makita ninyo, ang daming fake news, ang daming disinformation. It's very important to always be on the lookout for new knowledge, because science naman, it's a never ending process. The scientists and physicists are always learning new things. So it's the same with us. Kaya for me, I call it upgrading your life OS, because you have to continuously learn. And maybe pag na-disprove na hindi pala yan, like even with this COVID-19 situation, di ba dati sinabi nila, you don't need to wear a mask if you're not sick. And now, change naman nila yung ano nila, yung based on studies, di ba, you have to wear a mask going out. So for me, very important that we accept this process of a continuous learning, unlearning, and then relearning as well as more data comes in. For me, ito yung especially, with I've worked with a lot of organizations. I find that people, especially I would say in the Philippine setting, we're not a nation of readers yet. A lot of people struggle with updating or being agile, being, that they're able to shift their mindset na, especially now, a lot of businesses, a lot of, including schools where I belong in, teachers and the staff have to change their thinking na, how can I deliver value to the students, to my stakeholders, while staying at home, while working at home. hindi pwede na your mindset is 6 months tatanga ka lang sa bahay. It's very important na people realize that the the pace of change in society has accelerated. So I would call this, from computer engineering to consciousness engineering. I'm not advocating we become cyborgs or we fuse ourselves with machine. But for me, it's very important na yun we realize na again to belabor the point no na we update the operating systems of our machines on a regular basis. But are we uh, are we updating our own mental models, the frameworks that we're using in life? And for me, a lot of the models that we're using today are outdated because they were working for the old model. As you can, I think the most famous example here is they say the entire worker system or organizational designs today are based on the factory model, di ba na? You clock in 8 to 5 and then you clock out and then the next day because it's you have to produce something, a physical product or an output every day. But it's shifting, di ba? A lot of the smart creatives today in technology companies, their job is about thinking of possible solutions, prototyping it, and then launching it. It's not about and in Google they're very famous for having the 20% rule, wherein 1 day a week or 20% of your time you're allowed to create to pursue personal projects. And for me, di ba, a lot of the policies that we have na kailangan 40 hours per week, 8 to 5, 9 to 5 ka, are not working for all companies anymore. Because like ako, minsan I come up with my ideas when I'm in the shower, when during a weekend. Ano ibig sabihin ba na since outside of work hours ako, hindi ko na dapat i-pursue, di ba? And it doesn't mean na lahat nung mental models that we're using or policies are do not also need to adapt to the changes that are happening. So for me, it's very important that we have this mindset today, especially COVID-19. I would suppose will really create a lot of will force a lot of the changes in the way we go about life. And very briefly, I want to share with you. All of us are leaders, even at kahit na hindi tayo leaders sa job natin, we're leaders at our own home, or we're CEOs of ourselves. And I wanted to share with you the balcony and dance floor concept. So if you're leading teams, it's very important na who's dancing on the dance floor as a leader. Especially ngayon, COVID-19, very important ito, di ba? Work from home tayo. You have to know who is, sort of working, who is still able to produce output even while they're working at home. And then you have to also take a balcony view and see sino kaya hindi nag-participate, sino yung hindi nakaka-participate. Meron ba silang internet sa bahay? Meron ba silang computing device? May laptop ba sila or any gadget that they can use to do work. So very important for you to consider that as a leader. So let me go into the gist of today's presentation. And for me, it's very important when we update our mental models that we realize that little things sinasabi nila ng karamihan ng coaches that little things make a difference. 1% every day. If you invest in stocks, there's a concept of compound interest. And if you invest in your learning every day, I try to read 100 books a year, because again, it's really about this new knowledge being discovered or being realized by a lot of technology people or scientists or psychologists. And it's important for us to update ourselves, but it doesn't mean na 1 book per month is enough for me, because ang dami naman nating ibang ginagawang reading online. But realize that these little things make a difference, diba? Everyday improvement lang. There's a famous YouTube video and also now translated into a book. Yung I think general siya sa US Navy who said, "Make up your bed every morning," because when you do that, yung mental model, yung mental motivation mo agad na achieve mo na, you achieve one important thing for that day, and for the rest of the day it inspires you to achieve greater things. So yun yung philosophy niya. The little things kasi affect the way we conduct our lives. And of course, very important, and for me, I'm really an advocate for this. I hope one day the Philippines will be a nation of readers. If you go to Japan, Singapore, South Korea, you'll see that even the subway systems they read books. And for me, this statement of it's really one way, and for me probably one of the primary ways that people install new software into our brains. And the person you become in a few years is really based on your reading, di ba? Kung ano yung nabasa mo, you get to, even unconsciously, you prepare for the opportunities of the future. So if you don't read a lot, you won't be updated of all these things that are happening. And ito, very, very old na actually itong advice na to. Deep work was popularized by Cal Newport in the last 5 years. In a nutshell, it is about spending 4 hours of your day, which he says, based on his research, is your most productive time. You spend it on solving the biggest challenges in your job or in your life. And if you remember, merong ano before, parang chain mail siya, no? Before the internet, I was born before the internet. I encountered the story yung you have to put the big bowling balls in the box when you're going through your life or day. You have to give the most important work your attention, because if you start with the sand, with the very 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 little activities that might not really impact your work, there might not be enough time for you to work on the most important part. So si Cal Newport, he wrote this book, Deep Work, wherein he analyzed those CEOs or founders who have achieved a lot in life, and he realized that they spend, even writers, that they spend 4 hours a day to focus on really producing output. Si Malcolm Gladwell is famous for the 10,000 hours, di ba? To become an expert at something, you should have devoted 10,000 hours. But ako, ang belief ko ngayon dito is 10,000 from Thomas Edison, yung 10,000 prototypes. If you have an idea out there, get it agad out, and then see how people, yung tinatawag nila na A/B testing, see how people react. If it doesn't gain traction, then you improve on it. So very important, no? Next is Make Time. This is a book by Jake Knapp and John Seratsky. They are formerly from Google. And I realized when I read this book na I've been applying it in my life. So it's very, very, very simple. And I'm sure a lot of you, if you take a step back, you'll realize that you might be, you might be using it already in your life. So number one, highlight. So the day before, like ako, Sunday, for the coming week and Monday, I already highlight these are my objectives for this week. Ano yung gusto mo matapos this week? And then yun, laser, yung deep work, meaning you focus every day on getting, on accomplishing that particular task or activity. And then at the end of the day, you reflect what worked. Sa PNG, when I was formerly there, we had this concept of ORLN, objectives, results, learning, and next step. So what worked, what didn't work, and ano yung pwede ko ma-improve sa buhay ko. And very important na yung energy level mo ma-maintain. So yun the current research says that we have to spend 90 minutes on producing work, 30 minutes break, and then 90 minutes again. But of course, this is not, that's why we need to have this conversation, because I think not a lot of HR leaders have encountered these studies. And it's very important, especially work from home, na you take charge of how you carve out the time that you spend of the day. Diba? Kasi kung if you don't take, especially under this setup tayo ngayon, the rest of the day, you might finish the day without achieving anything. So very important to make time for the most important job. And number 5 is really about, doing it. And for me, ito yung concept again yung sinabi ko kanina of about perspiring. If you are if you want a problem, solved out there, addressed out there, then go do it. Just do it. If you don't have the talent, if you don't have the resources, you you invite other people, to help you fix it. But it's not enough anymore to just suggest, recommend, or keep on criticizing without offering or actually implementing or prototyping a possible solution. Number six, this is really important. It talks about, kung makita nyo yung ginamit ko na analogy, it's a cat that sees themselves as a tiger. And for me, the concept of never stop learning is really about that. You know what you can achieve. You know what you want to happen in your life. But it will not be given to you, on a platter, or it will not just fall into you. You have to earn it. You have to. So how do you do that? You have to continue learning. Number seven, this is very important, especially I think a lot of people, and I work in the academic sector, no, and I know a lot of people have challenges here, especially, without really citing examples. In the academic sector, maraming may PhDs, di ba, may doctors, but sometimes, if you became a PhD person 10 years ago and you didn't update yourself, then you might not be updated already in the current requirements of the world. And I found this out from reading this book from Johnny Ive, who was a chief designer from Apple, especially during, he has stepped down, but he was the chief designer during Steve Jobs' time, and a bit of the time under Tim Cook. But I was surprised to find out that while he was chief designer at Apple, he was also a chancellor at an arts university in the UK. And for me, it's very important for us to realize na, I think for him, it was being exposed to students with fresh ideas. And of course, he wanted to give back to the UK, to society, for the achievements that he has done. But the key point here is that it's very important na, you do not confuse your credentials for talent, because sometimes, di ba, we've attended this course, we've attended the certification program, we've finished this. Actually, I'm an accountant by education, but I didn't, practice it. So if you force me, or if you ask me to do accounting, I might struggle, even though that's what I finished in school. So very important. These are some of the mental models that we need to change. It's very, as you can see, it's not nerve wracking. It's not rocket science. But for me, these are mental models that we can use so that we can adapt, we can excel during this time. Number eight, this is the last 3 points. It's the concept of Ubuntu. This actually came from Africa, and it's basically the concept that I am because we are. So meaning, when we're, especially now, one thing, being in an innovation space, one of the things that keeps me awake at night is how do we provide employment or livelihood to those in the daily wage earners. Diba ngayon, during this ECQ period, a lot of them are struggling. But it's very important, because at some point it's going to affect us. It might lead to recession. It might lead us to a lot of problems. So for me, it's very important na we become conscious about our bigger, kung ang company may corporate social responsibility, we should also have our personal social responsibility. If we can help, we should help people. Nine is, don't forget to have fun. And I like this, statement that I saw on Facebook. We should start referring to age as levels. Di ba? Parang gamified siya. Don't forget to have fun while you're at work. Some of the notable examples that I've seen, especially during this work from home time, is, may mga Netflix party, may mga, people bring, parang yung dinadala nila sa kasal, what do you call that, yung parang may mga sila, may mga objects, so that to make it, and then yun, may weekly check-ins with their teams, para it doesn't mean naman na you're very serious always. And then lastly, and for me this is probably the gist of the entire session, your attitude. And as you can see, these are timeless advice. Your attitude determines your altitude. So this COVID-19, ako, for me personally, I'm very grateful that, I can do work from home. There are many people who can't do that. And so for me, I think very important for us to have that mindset, di ba, na how can I give more value instead of how can I take more value from my employer or from my company. Very important for me during this COVID-19, even though we're facing personal challenges. My wife is about to give birth due in 2 to 3 weeks. But it doesn't mean that I use it, to say na I can't work anymore because I'm stressed, preparing for it. Actually, lahat ng mga mga gamit ng baby namin, lahat online orders na lang. Buti na lang, thank God for these apps. But yun, very important, di ba, na your attitude will really determine your altitude in life. And for me, yun very important, very key. I hope this was able to tie this for you na yung outlook kasi natin, meaning if for example ako, I'm a big believer on these training programs or reading because when you consume content like this and then you act on it, then you're able to build yourself better and you're prepared to take on the challenges of the future. And then lastly, I'd like to end with this story. I think this is my last 5 slides, and then maybe we can go into Q&A. I'm sure some of you have encountered this, over the last, I think, high school pa ako nung na-encounter ko yung story na to. The story of the carrot, egg, and coffee bean. In life, we're always facing difficult situations. And in the case ni carrot, egg, and coffee bean, di ba, when you put them in a boiling water, the carrot, what? It becomes very soft. The egg, it hardens. But there's something special about the coffee bean. When you put it in the hot water, it influences, di ba, the entire water. It changes the situation. And for me, a lot of us need to take this mindset. How do we become a coffee bean? When there's a hard situation, how do we respond to it? I'm not saying na we have to be a coffee bean every time. There might be situations that we need to soften, especially maybe when you're dealing with your wife or your family, di ba? That you need to be the one that takes the the high road. Sometimes, when difficult situations come in, you have to be like the egg, and you have to fight it out. But I think a lot of times we don't realize that we can actually be a coffee bean. And for me, a lot of the situations are the win-win solutions wherein we change the entire, the situation. We by introducing something, we change the what's in the boiling water. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe there's a silver lining. For me, ako personally, yung COVID-19, though it's very hard, working from home, not being able to see your team, not being able to continue the services and programs that we're delivering at school. It has given me more time with family. So for me, very important. Again, this all ties together. Na your attitude determines your altitude. Um, Very important to have big goals, but don't tie your happiness to your goals. You have to be happy before you attain them. It sounds a bit paradoxical, but for me, very important na kaya very critical that you stay motivated, no? Because your goals will always be there. Kami sa Yellow Boat, gusto namin na one day we would be able to say that no child has been left behind. Lahat ng bata na gusto mag-aral nasa school. But it doesn't mean that we might get that there, di ba? It will always be, kung for example, lahat ng children physically nasa school na or physically enrolled na kasi pwedeng online, it doesn't mean that they're really learning, di ba? So the challenge, the goal doesn't really end. Yung iba dyan, meron na silang they get access to education pero baka wala silang internet sa bahay. So it doesn't stop. Yung nature ng solution will change, but the problem is still there. And ito from Sister Mary Loretta, she said, to be successful, the first thing to do is to fall in love with your work. So again, very important, no, na we have this mindset and we update it continuously. So as an ending, I'd like you to ask this questions, most important questions. especially this time that we're all probably, at home. So we have time to think about this and reflect on this. What experiences do you want to have in your lifetime? How do you want to grow? And how do you want to contribute? For me, the answers to those questions will lead you to who you are in the next 5 years. Kasi if you don't plan for that, if you wait for your boss, if you wait for your manager, if you wait for your loved one, for your wife to tell you that, I don't think na it will be very effective. You have to start. You have to start asking yourself these questions, because nobody is going to ask these questions for you, and then you can set out to answering these questions. So again, these are for me very simple tips to upgrade your life OS. And if you can see, you can all sum them up by number 6 and number 10: never stop learning, and your attitude determines your altitude. And for me, I am in the social innovation, social entrepreneurship space. I would just like to say na during this time, yun yung thinking ko talaga. Ang daming walang health insurance, ang daming walang livelihood opportunities. It's time for us to come together, and everybody, I believe, has an idea that can change. We need actually new business models. As we've seen, experts are saying this will not be the only pandemic we will face. There are other problems like this that we will face in the future. So it's important that we all contribute by potentially coming up with solutions. How many times do you need to upgrade your life OS? For me, the answer is every day, as much as you can. If you don't don't know something, there you can search it online. You can ask Siri, you can ask Google, you can ask you can use your phone to update. And for me, this is just an example. There was a point in time after I graduated from college that I struggled what I wanted to. But I realized that having a growth mindset is the key. It's like a boat, diba? For me, it's like a boat that you are from this place, you want to get to another place. And so you need to have that growth mindset, that process of learning and learning and relearning, so that you can continuously journey in life. Ako maganda yung analogy ng boat because yun, the kids, the same from a place of ignorance to a place of learning or education. So, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't mean when we graduate from college that the learning should stop. Learning is continuous. It's a process. It doesn't stop from graduating. So just an example, I actually, together with a colleague, I was able to launch a game app on the App Store last year or 2 years ago. And there are training programs from PowerMac on how to code. This is one parang timeline that you can use when you have free time and you want to learn how to code during this time. I have my personal assessment is the ECQ will be extended because I don't really see that we've flattened the curve. So you can take this time, and for me, when I was revising this presentation last night, I realized that you have to set, for example, if your target is how to learn how to code, go into an online tutorial or class, and then prototype agad, even if it's not perfect, and then test the app with your friends. Yung hope the concept, di ba? If that's something that you want to do, harness your potential, and then you see what resources is available, you prototype, and then you share with others because maybe they have inputs, or maybe you can inspire other people to also learn how to code in this example. And for me, this is really about a blueprint for living. And a lot of us, ako, even if it gets boring, if I get very serious about it, I realize that it's very important to teach people that you need to have a blueprint for how to live your life, because or else the situation or the circumstances will decide your blueprint, 'di ba? Kung for example, when you want to build a house, you ask an architect to design it first and then an engineer to build it. The same with life. You have to ask, you have to architect it yourself, or you have to get help from a life architect, in a way, a coach, or it could be a YouTube, it could be a video, it could be a book, it could be any material out there. But again, it doesn't stop there. You have to continue updating your learning. So I hope, thank you very much for listening in. And I have this concept of, a lot of the rules that we live in are outdated. And so it's important for us to challenge these rules so that we can change the world. Especially now, they said after the 2008 and 2009 global recession, it produced a lot of the technology companies. Now it was a time for Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram to bloom because there were a lot of opportunities after that recession. So again, attitude is key. I've actually written about this topic. You can search it on my Medium account, and it's called Upgrade Your Life OS. And again, thank you very much for listening in and spending your Monday morning here. I hope I was able to motivate you. And good luck in your learning journey. So I think, thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Perhaps there is some time for a Q&A.
We at PBSI, PMC Business Systems Inc., we're also a training center and the only Apple authorized global training provider in Southeast Asia. If you want to know more about us, you can go to about.powermaxcenter.com/training, and also you can go to our website on powermaxcenter.com/products/training booking for your online training needs. So ito po, I'll show you our website here. Ayan. So we have online offerings, one-on-one tutorials, summer workshops. Again, Sir Jay mentioned earlier that you need to upgrade your life OS. It is what you learn. So it is what you install in your brain. It is what you install, how you install new software. So we offer trainings for both individuals, professionals, educators. And speaking of educators, we have a professional development for educators. So you can go to our website. Again, it's powermaxcenter.com/training or /products training booking. So yan po siya. Siguro I'll just show a few here, the course over or outline for educators. So you have technology skills development to prepare you in using the Apple technology and other platforms. We also have the pedagogy and technology for EdTech integration, designing and creating digital learning tools. That is for creating learning content. Especially right now, it's very timely for you to learn also how to create online contents, and pathway to EdTech expertise. And that's the road to becoming an Apple teacher, uh, Google certified educator, and or a Microsoft innovative educator. So yan po. Ayan. So let me just unshare my screen. Ayan. There's one more chat. Ayan. Any free training you offer? Thank you for that question, Miss Marjorie. Um, wait lang. I'll just share my screen also. I just have my slides pa for that. So right now, we have an ongoing uh, free online trainings, free Zoom conferences. If you download our learning app, it's called Get Certified app from the App Store. You can get a complimentary training on your Apple device. So we will announce it also yung ano. So you can download our app, you can scan the QR code, or you can go to the App Store and search for Get Certified. So yan po yung app namin. So again, on behalf of PMC Business Systems Inc., I'm Joseph. Thank you very much for attending. Sir Jay, thank you very much for your time and for your expertise. Um,
Thank you as well.
Thank you very much. Ang dami po namin natutunan. We learned a lot. One siguro, share ko lang yung favorite part. Isa sa favorite part ko in your upgrade life OS is we refer yung age as level. So currently I'm on level 32. So very very ano siya. 'Di ba? Ibig sabihin well experienced and seasoned ka when it comes to age, no? So again, for all participants, thank you very much for your time and keep safe, stay healthy. Thank you
Thank
very much.
you.
Thank you. So our
Thank you,
session,
everyone.
ingat po kayo. God bless.
Have a great week ahead.
God bless you.
God bless po. Ingat po kayo.